Hello. No surprise, you find me in the California garden again. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background about me and this garden and how I came to be doing what I'm doing here. Let me back up and tell you that I actually started here as an intern and then worked as a gardener and have done all of the things in between since then related to horticulture here in this botanical garden. And so I have a very strong personal affinity for working with the plants. I really love to have my hands on the plants, as you've probably noticed in some of my other videos. I like to work with propagating plants and growing more of them, and just the care of plants in the landscape. One of my favorite things is pruning trees and doing pest management from a very proactive stance. And I just want to give you all of that background to fill you in a little bit, because you don't tend to see me out here with a shovel or a hoe or even pruning shears as often as used to be the case. Instead, what I've had to rely on and I've come to really appreciate is all of the people that I work with, and recognizing their abilities and growing skill sets and giving them opportunities to take over the care of certain sensitive plant species and be able to trust that they're going to do it at least as well, and in some cases even better than I would personally. So with all of that said, I wanted to use this plant here in our California garden to make a couple of different points. One of them being that this is Malacothamnus clementinus, and this is an endangered species that's protected at the federal level. At one point in time, there were only 2 or maybe 3 of these left in the entire world. And this was one of the original species to be protected under the newly created, at that time, Endangered Species Act. So at one point in time, this species was on the very cusp of just disappearing forever. And it serves as a great example of how collaborative conservation and how working with rare plants in a garden can actually contribute to protecting them and preserving them and making them something that is better understood as well as better appreciated as generations go on. So one of the things that I'm really heartened to tell you about is that this species is actually doing very well at this time. It went from having maybe 2 or 3 individuals, and it's kind of hard to say specifically what is an individual plant because this species actually spreads underground by rhizomes, and it will come up over here, but they're actually clonal connections. So determining one plant versus another is a little bit tricky, hence the range of 2 to 3 plants. But even so, 3 plants is not a very robust existence. And these plants only naturally grow on San Clemente Island, one of the Channel Islands, one of the islands that is actually predominated by a naval base. And so one of the things that I wanted to highlight with this species is not only that once it got protected and people started to actively work to not only study but preserve this species, that those efforts actually were dramatically successful. And on the island today, under the really robust care and consideration actually coming from the Navy itself, this plant species has gone from 2 or 3 individuals to, at last count, somewhere above 1,500 on the island. And it went from 1 occurrence to dozens, actually. One of the main threats to this species on the island where it grows naturally was feral goats that were just ravaging that sensitive island ecosystem. And so it was an effort in coordination with the Navy itself, actually, that removed those goats from this ecosystem. And even that one thing makes a dramatic effect on how resilient the natural population of a species like this can be. There's also the wonderful other side to this story, that this plant species was brought into cultivation. And actually, we purchased these individuals from the wonderful Tree of Life nursery. And to come full circle on this whole tale, we put them into our California gardenscapes here in a section that has a whole bunch of other plants from the Channel Islands, which are some of my favorites. So this plant individually is important to me because I have such a love for the plants under our care, but it's also an incredible story of not only how sensitive island ecosystems can be, but how if we do work together on this and in a robust fashion, you can not only preserve something, but have it re-flourish. And this is a great case in point for how growing plants can actually serve as a way to protect those rare species. And to cap it all off, I wanted to highlight that I have not done anything with these plants. I actually provided them to one of our wonderful horticultural staff. I'm going to embarrass him a little bit here, and Gabe is one of our gardeners who does the major care for this California section of the landscape, and he is doing an outstanding job. So we not only have a plant species here that is less rare all the time, but the individuals in our landscape are newly flourishing. And for me, as the person who at this stage gets to just come by and appreciate something like this, what a joy. And I hope that you can understand why these plants mean so much to us. We hope to share a little bit of that with you. So please stop by and take a look at all of these wonderful plants from around the California floristic province, including northern Baja, including the Channel Islands. Just so many amazing plants that I will definitely be back in this California garden talking to you about other species as well.